Good evening, everybody on the East Coast. Good afternoon, everybody on the West, and good in-between time to all our friends in the in-between places, which we all find ourselves every now and again, don't we? My name is Robert Seda Schreiber. I'm the chief activist of the Bydrussen Center for Social Justice, and I'm very excited to welcome you back to the Social Justice Power Hour, because we have quite the hour for you tonight, or again this afternoon for some of you over there. We have the incredible, wonderful illustrator, caricaturist. I prefer art journalist, I think is the best term, storyteller, provocateur. Steve Brodner is with us, and I will bring him on in just a moment, and we'll talk about his work and his career, his journey, and all the rest of it. But of course, as always, there's some stuff I want to get to up top. So as quickly as possible, first and foremost, I want to tell everybody that we're thrilled that Dr. Pernille Joseph, author of The Sword and the Shield and our newest board member here at the BRCSJ, invited me to his incredible Race and Democracy, the University of Texas at Austin Center for the Study of Race and Democracy at the Lyndon B. Johnson School of Public Affairs podcast. And I was thrilled to join him, and we had a very robust and meaningful conversation. So you can check out that podcast at your pleasure. Maybe during your lunchtime tomorrow, you can enjoy our company. Pernille and I make quite the dynamic duo of social justice. So check it out if you are so inclined. And I believe that our intern extraordinaire, Ashley, will throw up the link for that in the comments section if you want to check it out. So do so at your pleasure or peril. As I said, tonight we have Steve Brodner with us. Tomorrow night, we have the wonderful Genesette Gutierrez from the Familia Trans Queer Liberation Movement. Please join us for that incredible evening. And then Friday, to celebrate what is coming up on our 100th episode, which is unbelievable, we're going to have an open and out mic night highlights of the wonderful things that have happened on our virtual stage over the past 4 some odd months. And believe me, some of it has been very odd indeed. And then coming up later in the month, we have the wonderful Alicia Day doing a drag show for us. We're thrilled about that. We have our Lieutenant Governor going to join us. We're really honored to welcome Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver, who has an incredible personal journey, also one of only 4 Black lieutenant governors in the entire country. So really an honor and a privilege to have her with us. So we're looking forward to that. Mike Hotpence is going to join us and do a first ever variety hour, and we're thrilled about that. We're going to have old time sketches and skits. It's going to be a ode to the Carol Burnett show. A little song, a little dance, a little seltzer down your pants, and it should be a good time had by all. We have the incredible D. Smith, musician, Grammy Award winner, producer for Billy Porter, among many others, also transgender. And she's going to talk about how her transgender identity hurt her career for a long while and how she built herself back up. And it's an amazing journey, so join us for that. Hugh Ryan is coming back. Hugh Ryan, the author of When Brooklyn Was Queer, just came out in paperback. We can't wait to have our very own gay Indiana Jones join us, archiving the LGBTQI equivalent of the Lost Ark. Speaking of authors, just solidified, just verified, really thrilled about this. Adam Gopnik is going to join us from 1,000 Small Sanities, The Moral Adventure of Liberalism. Wonderful journey through what it means to be a liberal now and the history thereof, the evolution. A lot about Bydrussen in there, so we're thrilled about having that conversation. Michelle Elizabeth Brown, the incredible poet and spoken word maven, is going to curate a special evening for us of Black, Indigenous, people of color, queer voices, uprising. We're going to do a special Friday night open mic experience with her that she's going to curate especially for us. And that last, but certainly not least, coming up this Monday, Graywall will be with us. And we're thrilled about that. Announced really substantial police reform in our state of New Jersey that's going to inspire the rest of the country. We're going to talk about how meaningful that is, but also we're going to challenge him in how do we make sure that it is lasting and that it evolves over time, and the community helps to build it forward. So we're thrilled about that. Join us Monday for that really important conversation. But speaking of conversations we're looking forward to, I believe this could be construed as an abuse of power. As chief activist, I am thrilled about having our next guest on the show. Full disclosure, he teaches at School of Visual Arts, which was almost my alma mater. I didn't quite make it. I spent a few years there, a few wonderful years there, learning cartooning and just basically having shenanigans and really enjoying myself. And we are both in books edited by the great Stephen Heller as well. So full disclosure, I am a huge fanboy and thrilled to have him join us. And speaking of, let's do that. Steve, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're so thrilled to have you.
Robert, the honor is mine. Thank you for having me. I admire so much what you do, and I don't know the full width and depths of your activities, but just from what I've been able to research on my own a little bit, you're one of the people out there helping to really push change, and I'm very grateful to be here to witness what I believe is a great progressive moment. You know, we've had great moments of progressive politics in this country, especially when it's accompanied by great pain. And right now, we're not even beginning to calculate the amount of pain that we are experiencing because of the disease, the degree to which the disease has been allowed to run rampant, the depression that it's caused, and the overreach of government toward fascism. But we are coming to understand that, and people who have not been involved in, and also let's mention a whole new civil rights movement, and people who have not been involved in politics in their whole lives now are, because they don't see any alternative. They don't see a choice but to drop what they're doing and hit the streets and write articles, draw pictures, go on the web, do broadcasts, do podcasts. It's a terrible time and an exciting time, and I'm grateful to be here with you.
Thank you, my friend. You hit the nail on the head. It is an extraordinary time, and I think that what's important is that we recognize that there's tremendous pain involved. We're facing the pandemic of coronavirus. At the same time now, we're facing the epidemic of systemic racism, which we've been contending with quietly, and a small portion of our folks have been suffering through, and now we all are suffering through it together and trying to find the voice for it and trying to find the way forward for it. And you are doing a great deal of work in helping that, and that's why we're thrilled to have you with us.
Thank you. I think everybody needs now, we have this tool. We all have this tool of the internet, and it's easy to just get on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram and write things and draw things and post things and share things. And we're potentially more involved than we've ever been. There are great online ways to organize and campaign in the summer and fall that are going to be, enabling us to overcome the inability to gather and to ring doorbells and approach people in their homes. And it's this technology is actually empowering us. In addition to all of the threats it poses, we seem to be able to do things in spite of all the obstacles, which politically are pretty high right now.
And I want to jump back, because in my overexcitement in introducing you, I realize that some people may not be as familiar with you. I think of illustrators, of artists, as kind of like character actors in movies, where you see them all the time, but you don't recognize their name, and when you see their face, when people see your work, they're going to say, "Oh my gosh, that's who this is." I mean, your work has graced the cover of attention. Society of Illustrators has celebrated you. You were the first, and forgive me if I'm wrong here, but you were the first artist, living artist, to be recognized by the Norman Rockwell Museum. Is that correct?
I believe I'm the first living artist, still living, apparently,
I appreciate
who,
that. That's good.
to the best of my knowledge, to have been given a solo exhibition at the Norman Rockwell Museum. You know, that museum is devoted to Norman and the great historical illustrators of the early 20th century. And for some reason, in '07, they asked me to put a show together, which I did.
Stop. Don't be modest. You. So I want to. It's silly for us to talk about your work without just starting to get right into it. But I do want to. There was one quote that I read that I think was so perfect. You know, as an artist in my former life, this is what I felt too. Whenever I would be able to find a piece that actually worked. And you said this. You said, "quote To me, it's just about showing up every day and telling as much of the truth as I can get my arms around." And I think that's just beautiful.
Ansel Adams, who's a wonderful photographer, said something like, when your goal is the truth, your art cannot help but partake of truth. And that's really the first goal. You know, we're surrounded by, every day, by rising tides of bullshit, ever higher rising tides of bullshit. So, you know, it's in the interest of capitalism to tell you anything that it needs to get you to buy stuff. So we're being bombarded with that kind of bullshit. And politicians want you to buy their stuff too, which Trump does every day. I think everyone's pretty much onto his bullshit. But it is our job, all of us, to be in a kind of an anti-bullshit zone where we don't engage in that. And if somebody, you know, even on our side, somebody from the left, center left, hard left, is engaging in those kinds of games, call them out and say, you know, this is not entirely correct. Part of that is right, but let's look at the whole thing, because our argument is made stronger the more we connect to the truth and to evidence. Let's find evidence for everything that we state, so that, you know, it's a hard case. We want to state the case in a really strong, powerful way, and you don't do that with mythology. You do that with facts and evidence, and it's old-fashioned, but I think that's the way to go. And I think the Democratic Party has moved pretty progressive lately. Even poor old Joe Biden today came out with a climate change plan that involved $2 trillion, I believe. Was it 4 trillion? I don't remember now. And some climate organizations said this went further than Bernie Sanders in some ways. And, you know, it's not Joe Biden, it's the times. All these crises are demanding attention, especially after Trump, who's ignored or exacerbated them. And so this is an era where we're going to start to crawl out of the darkness and blink our eyes into the sunshine and say, wow, we can do things here. Let's operate now. You know, I believe this election is going to bring a lot of Latino, African American, LGBTQ candidates out into elections, winning elections. And once they're in the room, women, once they're in the room, the conversation changes. Now, all kinds of things that didn't used to be on the table, you know, I just saw today, suddenly reparations is being taken seriously. It wasn't talked about in mainstream in the past, but something is happening now, and it's wonderful. And I want everybody listening to feel that as bad as this all is, there's a real door that's opening. We can all go through this door to activism and to organizing. And this is the time. You know, we've got something like 110 days till the election. This is the time. Maybe this is the chance of a lifetime to change the government. So, you know, despair, but if you want, but not too much. Limit the despair. Take it, say, all right, it's time's up for despair. I'm going to make some phone calls. Indivisible.org and all the other ones,
So without even seeing his work, folks, you know now why I wanted Steve to be with us. I mean, this is wonderful, inspiring words and something that we can all carry forth. But speaking of the work, let's get to that. And as we look at it, and as I will try to be as quiet as possible and let Steve talk about the work. And also remember, in our beloved community, you can make comments, you can ask questions in the comments section, which we will certainly do our best to answer. If you just want to give a snap up to the work, you're more than welcome to. And if you want to say, oh my gosh, I remember that piece, because as we go through, you're going to see pieces. I remember that cover of The Nation. I remember seeing that in Rolling Stone. I remember that on MTV. Wherever it may have shown up, Steve Brodner's work has been everywhere. So what I wanted to do was start with a couple of current pieces just to give people a flavor of what you're doing right now, and then go all the way back, if that's okay with you.
Let's go.
You were just talking about Joe Biden, so let's bring this.
This week. This is out this week. It's it's not a cover, but it's a full page in The Nation. John Nichols was one of my favorite writers. Good socialist. Wrote about okay, everybody, don't get cocky. If Biden wins, it won't make a damn bit of difference if McConnell is still running the Senate. So we have to really work on the Senate too, do all these things together. Local elections, the presidency, get rid of Trump, but we have to get rid of Mitch. We have to get rid of him. It's so important to end the filibuster, and then we can pass all kinds of things, to end the gerrymanders and straighten out voting rights. And once you start straightening out voting rights, then Republicans have a much harder time winning elections in the future. And then, of course, everything else from climate change to police reform to the terrible issues of inequality and the immediate issue of how to help people get by when there are no jobs. Andrew Yang's predictions came true immediately. He was talking about long-term plans about how to help people through tough times. And then all of a sudden we're here. People are going to need money to stay alive and to take care of their children, healthcare, either Medicare for all or massively expanding Obamacare immediately with the public option. Nobody should be without healthcare, especially with respect to what's happening now. So, yeah, that's what the point of this piece is. Biden's getting inaugurated, and then here's McConnell just looking over the shoulder, of the Chief Justice.
So there's so many threads I want to pull. So one, John Nichols is a great author, great book that he wrote. We'd love to have him on the we'd love to have him on the show sometime. He'd be a great guest.
He's great. Great personality.
I don't want to get too much into technique and into the art making of it, but I have to ask a couple of things. And I think this goes beyond caricature. This is something you find the very essence. And how does that work for you? Like, how do you find that essence of who you are drawing? And sometimes it's very...
The first thing you have to do is decide what you want to say. In any kind of illustration, find out what it is you want to say about a face. And once you're clear about, what the attitude is. So in this case, I wanted a gleeful Mitch McConnell, sort of licking his lips. Maybe he's going to gobble up everybody. So once I knew where I was, I had that feeling about where I wanted to go, then I'm looking for photographs. And luckily we live in a day and age now with this thing. And you can go to Google Image and there are hundreds of Mitch McConnell pictures, thousands of them. And you can just pick the ones you like, the ones that give you the best feeling for the mood and the direction that you want to go in. And so it's all about casting, deciding what type of drawing you want to make, and then just starting to put it together. So it's a little bit like a collage. I wanted a certain Biden, I wanted a certain Roberts, Jill Biden I needed an expression on her face. And then I had the crowd, and I didn't make them up either. I looked for photos of real people. I tell my students, don't make it up. Everything out there is going to tell you what it really looks like. And then as a caricaturist, you take it upon yourself very much to then exaggerate and play with the faces. And but I'm always pushing them in the direction of story. And that's my ministry as a teacher. Story is everything. Push your art in the direction of the story, and you will get there. So every face that I draw that you're going to show in this interview is about that. So that maybe is a guide along the way as we look at these. It's all about story. They're not just exaggerations of faces. They are taking the face and using it as a vehicle to tell a story about that person, or sometimes the person as a symbol for an issue. There's a lot of hate in my work, but I don't hate these people personally, except Trump. But aside from them, everyone else, I hate them as a symbol for what they represent, which is usually the forces of greed, the forces of cruelty, forces of racism, homophobia, colonialism, imperialism, all these things that say that if I have the advantage of privilege and wealth, then I can use it to clear away anybody who's got a claim. And it doesn't matter what the claim is. If they're Black, if they're Indian, if they're Muslim, they're Mexican, Latino, they're gay, women, anybody. So for me, caricature is just about the larger story, looking for how to use the face to communicate a point, a political point, usually.
So I want to, speaking of, this is the opposite of hate. This is a beautiful piece. I wanted to show one more current piece, and then again, go all the way, take the Wayback Machine all the way. But this piece really struck me. This was one of my favorites of yours.
Thank you. Thank you. So when the pandemic struck in March, I didn't know what to do. I mean, how do you caricature somebody? How can you, as a caricaturist, how do you deal with that? And I just came to the feeling that it made a difference for me to draw the faces of the people being lost in the pandemic. So I started to do it every day, and you can see them all if you go to my public Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Steve Brodner. And you can scroll down, start in March, and then come right up to now. I'm going to do another one tonight. I think about people getting hit in the eye with canisters during protests. Turns out there are many such people who have been blinded. Here was Breonna Taylor, who was shot 8 times because the police entered her home by mistake. And her boyfriend was upset about this. He had a gun, and the police, instead of figuring out what they were doing and who these people really were, just started to fire. She was shot 8 times in bed. And this comes at a time of, as we all know, multiple examples of extreme police brutality and violence, and not caring about people, lives not mattering to them. So yeah, I do one of these every day now, and it's come to be called The Greater Quiet. And you could go to Facebook and see them all, and you can subscribe to it too. You can have them delivered every day most days in your email.
So you've inspired me. I want to show one more, just because the way you just capture these personalities.
Look at these faces, the names go by really fast in the news. And so what I'm trying to do is pause it a little bit. Let's look at them. Let's look at the face. Let's read a little bit about them. This man is 49 and pillar of Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn. So don't think it's only old people. People in their 40s, people in their 30s now are dying. There are a lot of myths about the disease. And one of them is that young people are kind of immune or resistant to it. Not true. Not true.
Yeah, it's beautiful work. And so if you go to your website, stevebrodner.com, that's where people can sign up to get these each day.
You can sign up if you go. I don't know where on my website you can sign up yet. I don't know if it's clearly laid out, but you can go to my website to see my work, and then Facebook. There it is. Facebook.com/Steve Brodner, and then every day I post a little link as to how to get it delivered free to your email as soon as I post them.
You do it every day, which is just phenomenal.
Some days I can't. I fall apart. But most days, yeah, I'd say it's 4 to 6 a week.
That's a pretty good average. All right, so let's go all the way back. I think that some people in our audience will recognize this gentleman. Well, I use the term loosely. So tell us about this one.
This was the really beginning of my being kind of a successful illustrator. And this is because even though I've been working professionally since 72, it wasn't until about 87. All right, so it took me about 15 years until I was able to stop doing all the day jobs and just do illustration. And that was because Ronald Reagan, who was president at that time, started to lose it. He was very old. That's not as old as presidents now, but he was, as we now know, he was suffering from a kind of Alzheimer's, some level of dementia. And suddenly, even his being a Teflon president stopped. And he was nailed with a scandal called the Iran-Contra scandal, which you can all look up about if you're not old enough to remember it. And I'm not going to go into it now, but he was caught lying. And Washington Post called me to do a series of Liars of the Year. One of them, by the way, was Joe Biden, who lied, had to drop out of the presidential race because he had lied about a speech that he gave, which was an exact cribbing of a British politician named Neil Kinnock. I'm sure that Trump will bring that up this time. But it's water under the bridge for Biden. I think, I don't know, what is it, 35 years you get a pass. But Reagan was finally nailed, and it was because of this series and a few other series that I was suddenly able to, excuse me a second, I was suddenly able to be seen, and I went from there to Esquire, where I worked for 2 years, and then from there to Spy, where I worked for a couple of years as a regular, and then to the New Yorker, where I was regular contributor for 19 years, and then from the New Yorker on to everywhere else, where I'm happily living right now. So it's a long career, and I'm very grateful that I keep working and I get the chance to go on new adventures all the time. This one here is from 98. I went for Esquire down to Texas to follow George W. Bush on his gubernatorial reelect campaign. And this is the opener for that journalistic series. I interviewed Karl Rove and Mark McKinnon and all the Bush pals, George W. Bush making his it was his coming out party. So this is the opener for that story where he's riding a horse that looks like his dad. And the idea behind that is that a lot of people in the country gave Bush very high poll ratings in the beginning. And I think it's very possible that they didn't know which George Bush they were being asked about. So it's possible that the whole thing was based on a misunderstanding. But there it is. Anyway, that was a full page opener for Esquire.
If I may, like a little too inside baseball illustration question.
Yeah.
But I see some Ralph Steadman in this. Are you a fan?
Oh, of course. Who isn't a fan of Ralph Steadman? I think if you look at my work, you'll see all my influences. I think it's good to just allow people to influence you and teach you. I learned a lot from Stedman. Stedman criticized my work once in a friendly way. He was talking to somebody somewhere, and he said, Steve is good, but he doesn't take his line out for a walk.
Oh.
And I think he's right. I think he's right. Ralph's line is always going out for a walk. It's actually it's going out to get drunk and fall down in the water and throw up. And that's what we love about it. But my lines are always like, let's get it exactly right. And I think he sees how worried my line is. And he's telling me, your line shouldn't be so worried. Just go out, have a good time. So,
I have to say,
I do that sometimes.
I love Ralph Steadman. I love his work, but I think that there's a beautiful chaos in your work too.
Thank you. This one is very controlled. I don't know. It's kind of small on my screen, but I'll tell you what's happening. This was making the analogy between Bush and the Sorcerer's Apprentice, if you remember Fantasia. So he looked like Mickey to me, Bush. So I drew him as Mickey Mouse with the sorcerer's hat, and he's chopping up the offending broom, which has got the face of Saddam Hussein on it, which is, a comment on the Iraq War. Meanwhile, the little shards of wood that are arising from the broom are coming up and around and going down, and they're all becoming little terrorist brooms, each hauling buckets of bombs. So my commentary was, if you kill this one, you're making more. And all these years later, we're still in Iraq.
Yeah, it's a strong piece. I mean, there's the great art in it, but there's also the wonderful. I mean, art journalist is just the perfect term for what you do. Each one has a story.
We try to have things make sense. As I said, story. If you keep your mind focused on the story, you'll get there. Because there's so many things when you're drawing an illustration that'll distract you, things that'll take you away from the story. And you may want to just draw something adorable in the corner, something that, I love that cat, I want to draw that cat. Well, the cat may have nothing to do with the story. You may just like the cat, but in this case, you got to get rid of the cat. I'm sorry. This is the cover. This is the cover for The Nation when the Republicans took over in 2010. Ship of Fools, and they're just caricatures, stuffed into this leaky little vessel that's going to go down. And so there is Inhofe clinging to the smoke pumping chimney, and Paul Ryan and McConnell and John Boehner, and those guys are not here anymore. Joni Ernst, Ted Cruz, and Stephen Scalise, who sadly are still here.
Right.
Ted Cruz still looks like that because he doesn't wear a mask.
Indeed.
You just have a picture of him on the airplane without the mask?
I saw that. Yeah,
well, it's good to know, that he's exactly in private who he is in public. This is a sketch for a cover for The Nation. It was never used. It was a story cover. I did do that cover about Scott Walker of Wisconsin, but this was an idea they rejected. But it's on it's on one of my websites or the PowerPoint that you have. Yeah, these are sketches for that article. So it's just process stuff. One idea that I sent them is where the alien is coming through his chest, right? So we're showing two sides of a person. A lot of illustration is about showing more than one side of something. So in Walker's case, we're showing the smiley guy and then the awful monster that's inside. And here I'm trying to show how he's very much like Richard Nixon. And this is a very early sketch in that. But I did get to it where he really did become something like Nixon. I didn't know that I'd be able to do it, but I don't know if you have that there, but you can actually see the final where I figured it out at 3 o'clock in the morning. It took a long time. But yeah, illustration is about making lots of sketches. And, making mistakes and then recovering from your mistakes and learning. It's a process of learning and trying. Any creative process is about trying things out, seeing how they work, adding, subtracting, and then not being able to see it, the thing at all clearly, and then having to go to bed. And then you get up and you say, okay, what is it now? And then you'll be surprised at either it's much better than you thought, or it's nothing like what you wanted, or it's a little bit and you got to just play with it a little bit. And it's magic. It's really magic. Any creative, those of you out there who are writers, you know this too. Go to bed, wake up and look at what you wrote, and you say, well, it's kind of okay. Or, wow, it's better than I thought. Or it's like, no. You ever have a session, like a bull session, where you're with your friend and you're like laughing your asses off about something that's such a great idea. This is the most hilarious fucking thing I've ever heard in my whole life. Then the next day you wonder, like, why was that so funny? It's like, no, it's not that fun. It's not a good idea at all, that thing that we were laughing so hard about. It was the beer or the pot. Anyway, this is the cover for the late lamented Village Voice of Trump as a toy fascist.
A moment of silence for the Village Voice.
Yes, I did a lot of things about him as a fascist, as a Nazi, and I got kickback from people who said, you're going too far. Come on, Yeah, he's Republican. Yeah, he's a TV character, but come on, Anyway, now it's all come true. It's hard for anyone to.
What year was this? This is 2000.
2016, I believe. This is election year, or early. Maybe it's the fall of 2015, even. I can't see the date on this right now, but the camera is photographing him as a little wind-up toy, because it's calling him a toy. What does it say? Toy fascist or something? And then the image that gets broadcast on the screen is of him doing the Heil Hitler thing, and then everybody in the audience is doing it also. If you see them afterwards. So all these commentaries have not been disproven. I've done many illustrations that did not bear the test of time. Unfortunately, my Trump ones did. This is him as Jaws. This was the summer of 2016, I guess, convention week. He was going to consume the Republican Party. There's a little swimming elephant, unaware that any moment now, massive orange thing was going to consume him. And it pretty much happened. That did happen. Republican Party is no more really. And there were so many conservatives so many died in the wool Republicans. It's going to be a big election because there's a big coalition. What happens on November 4th, God only knows. The coalitions, those kinds of coalitions immediately go to war with each other. But for now, we're holding together pretty well, and it's thrilling to see this.
So I want to ask another illustration question. The choice of putting the Jaws in front of the logo of the voice, was that you or them?
That was the art director, Andrew Horton, who is one of the more brilliant art directors around. There are art directors out there who are not just good at design. They also have a good strategic mind, and they also have a social conscience. And he's one of those. So he's working in different places now. I wish the voice would come back. They don't have to publish. They can just be online and hire a few people and hire a few good people. They probably can afford it. They keep their website. They're sending money to keep the website up. So why not, commission more things? Other things will come. We're in a real media redirect now. This is a mass extinction moment, and the vacuum will create opportunities. There's so many talented people out there. I have no doubt that we're going to find great projects coming up. It's just not here this week. right now we have to get through this.
Yeah, but we will, and we are, and this is the kind of thing that makes it work. Now, here is a great piece.
This is one of my more famous, most quoted pieces. And yeah, you see somebody who made it into a sign in the streets. People have projected this on buildings and made posters and done all kinds of things with it. And somebody said to me, you shouldn't be using the swastika this freely. And I said, look, I'm 60 years old. I was 60 at the time. I said, so far I've used it once every 60 years. So I think that's okay. If I do it once every 60, I'm all right. And but it turned out to be damn true. That's absolutely what he has up there. He loves only dictators. He yearns to be one, and there's no hiding it anymore. We're on to him, and I think the jig is up.
Yeah, I love the fact that were you able to capture this image, or was it something that someone sent to you from a protest using your piece?
Somebody sent that to me. Somebody sent that to me and said, I saw this at the rally.
It's nice. Well done.
It's nice when people. Thank you. When people like an image enough, that's a really good feeling. It used to be we worried about people filching our imagery and how could you steal my art that way? And now I'm saying, steal it, please, take it. Make stickers, put it on the subways, put it on your head. Here's for the New Republic. Roberts is invoking the oath. Will you preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution? And Trump says, the what? He still hasn't read it, I'm sure.
So,
and no one can read it to him either. It doesn't have pictures, Robert. It needs to have some sexy photographs of somebody.
So here's my question.
Dirty money. Wouldn't that be a funny concept? Like, take the Constitution and reprint it with dirty pictures for Donald Trump.
I like so this. This is the first thing we should do. We should do it at the Voice, at the reformatted Voice, at the rejuvenated Voice. That'll be the first thing we do. I like it. I approve. All right, so let's move on. This is so again. Let me ask you. This piece, there's so much going on, and I'm gonna disappear for a minute so people can see it bigger. But how long does a piece like this take you?
It took me a couple of weeks. Well, more than that, because before I could draw this thing, I had to make sure that the Washington Post knew exactly what I was going to put in. And I do the research on these, and I sold the Post on this idea. So this was at the first 100 days, I believe, of the Trump administration. There's a traditional period of time of 100 days at which journalists and other people start to evaluate a presidency and say, well, what did he accomplish in 100 days? This comes from FDR's first 100 days, which was a very activist time for him. And and so every president who comes in has the 100 days review. And there was plenty of stuff that went on for 100 days, or lies and greed, and Gorsuch is in there, and China, and Syria, and the swamp. You see Betsy DeVos in the swamp, along with Scaramucci and Gary Cohn and all the rest of them. And it's much taller than this. It's a full page in the Washington Post. So I would say this might have been about a month's worth of work. And then as new information would come in, I would erase stuff and put things in. And I'm doing something like that now for the Washington Post too, which is about the various news media arms that will enable a right-wing conspiracy theory like Pizzagate to transfer itself and transmutate all the way to mainstream media. And how does that happen? So I'm going through the same process now where I send my ideas to the Post. Here's a rough sketch. They look at all these ideas. They say, oh, this is good. This is good. This is not, we don't want this. It's not my newspaper. I go as far as I can. And then it winds up being printed, and it's fine.
May I ask you, has there ever been a moment where you've fought back and you said, no, this is essential to the piece. I need this to stay?
Oh, yeah, all the time. What's a good example of that? Nothing comes to mind right now, but you're always fighting for your ideas. It's like anything, any kind of project that you're doing where you're proposing something, you're pitching something, and people say yes, and then they, I was doing a climate change thing for Harper's. This was a heartbreak, and I just wanted to have the major issues of climate change going back from 1850 to the present, the key moments. And the thing wound up dying because there were too many cooks watching the pot, and everybody wanted to change the direction of it. And finally, they couldn't figure out what they wanted. And then they dropped the whole project when I had done a tremendous amount of work. And you have to take this into account, that this sort of thing can happen. Things do get killed. People do come in from someplace else and will suddenly disagree with what you're doing. And, it's essentially a collaborative process. And you hope for a collaborator who is like the Washington Post, who totally gets what you're doing and wants you to succeed and won't object or find it threatening that some other editor got in and was doing something unique. So yeah, you wind up winning some and losing some. Yeah. That's the nature of the job.
This is a fantastic piece. There's just so much, and I'm actually going to disappear myself again so people can see it larger, and you can tell us what we're looking at.
Somewhere in my studio, there is a caricature of Hillary Clinton being inaugurated. And that's what I was really working on when this piece happened. It was Hillary Clinton being inaugurated because she had won. And she's surrounded by all the people involved in the campaign, Republicans and Democrats. And they're all covered with orange slime. So she's taking the oath. John Roberts is there, Supreme Court, everybody like this. But it was all the Hillary Clinton gang and some Republicans, but they're all covered in orange slime, as if the big orange ball had exploded. And even though Hillary's president, we're still scarred by all that, radioactive detritus. So suddenly, all that work, and the thing is half finished. I did most of it. Had to be thrown away. It's still here somewhere. I didn't throw it away. But no one saw it. And I called my editor at LA Times and I said, I don't know what to do. And she said, well, take a few days and think about this, because we did want to do something for the inauguration. And so I started thinking about royal families. I started thinking about the Romanovs and Steve Bannon could be like Rasputin and stuff like that. And then I hit on this image, which is Goya's. And this is Goya, not the canned food company that Ivanka today did an ad for. Goya, the famous Francisco Goya, of whose work you can see in the Prado and other places, one of the greatest artists who ever lived, did a portrait of Charles IV. And they all looked pretty sad in that picture. He was a satiric artist and somehow got away with that official portrait where he was really telling the truth about these folks. And Trump to me looked like that guy. Soft, doughy, like a kind of a slug. And he still looks like a slug to me. And here's the rest of him. And they're all kind of, infantilized, sleazy, bottom feeder type individuals, except the one on the far right who is Vladimir Putin. And you see he's got his hand reaching behind Jared Kushner and tapping Trump on the shoulder. And I try to get everybody in this, Kellyanne Conway and the family and Pence and Bannon and Pompeo is in there and Mnuchin. And although a lot of these people are now gone because Trump can't stand to have people in his administration for too long, unless they totally kowtow to him. But yeah, that took a long time to put together, and about 45 portraits in that.
It's amazing. I have to say I would love to see the Clinton piece even in its unfinished form.
I don't even have a scan of it. It's packed away. One day maybe in November after this election I'll bring it out, so we won't feel too bad about it. But I have to work. I have to start doing a Biden inauguration piece now, and I don't want to bring him the same kind of luck I brought Hillary, so I'm a little reluctant.
We're going to work hard to make sure that doesn't happen, right?
I don't think there's a chance. I really don't think there's a chance that this country sticks with a president under these circumstances. There's too much pain. This is another one for the Post. Jurassic year. I think it's maybe the second year of Trump's presidency, and I'm coming up with a theme for each thing. So this one is, I have him as a character in Jurassic Park, except he's this big orange dinosaur. And that's the way I see him, as this monster, this killer, who actually is not in his time. He comes from another time. He comes from the Mad Men era, the 50s and early 60s, before things started to get shaken up a little bit. So yeah, all around, this is the events of that year, and there's too many to mention right now, but it's a full page that I feel.
The line work in this one is just beautiful. I love the feel of it, and the way it just the emotion of it is just gorgeous.
Thank you. I'm trying to connect with the emotion.
So speaking of all time, this is great.
So I'm hoping that enough people have seen the Harold Lloyd film Safety Last, or at least if you haven't seen it, you know this famous poster, this famous photograph of Lloyd scaling the side of this building in the film, and at one point he grabs onto the hands of a clock, and the clock starts to come apart while he's hanging off the building. And I got the idea of the atomic scientist's clock, which keeps getting its hands moved forward closer to midnight. It's called the Doomsday Clock. And Trump's irresponsible approach to nuclear proliferation has brought the world closer to nuclear disaster. So here he is hanging off the building, and his gravity is yanking the minute hand yet even closer to midnight. And this is also for the nation.
It's a great piece. It's smart.
Thanks. How we got here. This was for the Columbia Journalism Review. This is only one page of, I don't know how many. I did maybe 2 pages. Yeah. And you can see in this, if you could get a close look of it. Yeah, that's good how you can do that. We go from the guy reading the paper and listening to Walter Cronkite to the breakup of media via the coming of cable and Reagan's destruction of the fairness doctrine. So by the third picture, he's totally surrounded by Rush Limbaugh and Hannity and all kinds of voices that are delivering him non-news. But of course, the poor fellow can't figure out the difference. And that's one of our biggest problems. I think that's a bigger problem than Trump. When people have no access to journalism, they can't tell the difference between journalism and conspiracy theories and propaganda, either state propaganda or Koch brothers propaganda. And until finally we come down to the 2016 election, where it's Putin coming out of his television, and he's very upset, and the man has a little cat, and cat screaming. The last one, he's got, I guess this is a prediction, he's got virtual reality device on his head, and he's looking at all these interesting conspiracy theories flying around, and he doesn't realize that his cat has passed away. It's a sad story.
It's a great story. It's really smart, and you can see all of this work on your website and your Facebook page. And I cannot believe how quickly the time has gone. I wanted to end with a couple of pieces that are some of my favorites. And
this is kind of a sweet piece I did. The buildings are showing the economy kind of not recovering fast enough. This is after Obama had taken over after the Great Recession. But his poll numbers remained high. People didn't blame Obama for it. And so this was in advance of, I guess, the 2012 election, where he was going to do well in spite of all these bad economic indicators at that time. So I have him kind of as a balloon floating over the buildings that represent the declining economic figures.
Really well done.
Thank you.
Thank you for that one. And I wanted to end, this is my favorite of the daily pieces you've been doing, a hero of many in our community.
Oh, yes. Amy Stevens was, her name just became clear to me at the time of the Supreme Court decision to protect the rights of LGBTQ folks last month. A surprise vote by the Supreme Court, but she didn't make it to see the ruling. She died before the ruling, but her partner responded to the decision, said, "We won." And she was sick. She was wheelchair bound. But maybe Martin Luther King was right that the arc of history is long, but it does bend toward justice. But I would also add that it takes all of us to be involved and to be and not do what happened in 2016, which is for us to go to sleep and think that somebody else will do it. I think now we all realize that we have to do it. And we have to all get in touch with activist organizations. You can find them online. I'm always posting the links. You can write postcards. You can make phone calls, and if we all do that, it only takes 3 swing states to change it: Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. Michigan is no longer a swing state. They've declared it pretty much a blue state now. Pennsylvania, polls came out today that showed a double-digit lead for Biden. And I think Wisconsin nailed them, and it's over. But I think there'll also be Florida and North Carolina and Arizona and maybe Texas even. This could be a very, very big thing, and we will have done it. So keep the faith, baby, as Adam Clayton Powell would say. Although we don't want to mention Adam Clayton Powell on the website that honors Bayard Rustin, do we? They were not friends. They were not good friends. Bayard Rustin, by the way, I have to say, one of the great people in American history. I'm old enough to remember him being involved in the civil rights movement. And when you read about him, I had no idea how deeply he was involved at that time. They kept him in the background, I think, because he was gay. But in the background, he accomplished tremendous things, including teaching King about Gandhi, I understand.
Yep, no, that story. I thought that story was apocryphal for many years, and we had the incredible, unique honor of having Walter Nagel, his partner, be a community liaison to the center. And that story is absolutely true. I mean, Bayard went to King's house at dusk, and they argued literally all night. And at the time, King had guns in the house. He had armed guards. When Bayard,
I wouldn't blame him. I would not blame him.
I agree. But Bayard was able to show him what the movement needed to be, and history was forever changed. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
It was a great pleasure. It was a great pleasure. I wish you all the best, and let's stay in touch, and maybe there are things we can do together as we get closer to the election. I would like to post your activities on my social media, So I'm going to keep an eye on what you're doing, and all your fans, please accept my strongest wishes for a better time for all of us, particularly underserved communities, communities who have been traditionally overlooked and repressed. And this is the time for no bullshit, as I said. Tell the truth, tell it louder than we ever have before. Draw pictures, write poems, write letters, write postcards, and basically kick butt in 2020.
And look at Steve's work. Find Steve's work because you'll find inspiration in it. And if you circulate it ends.
And do your own work. Do your own work. Draw your own pictures. Make your own poems. Write the memoirs. Everybody should keep a log and write down what you see every day and what you're feeling every day, what you're going through. It's very therapeutic, and people want to hear from you. People really, the more personal it is, the more people are going to be interested. So
thank you.
I know you gotta go. Okay.
Will you do me a favor? Oh no, I will stay all night. Do me a favor. Will you hang out just for a minute in the queue so I can say goodnight to you personally and say goodnight to our community?
Will do.
All right, my friend. Thank you very, very much. Friend, follow on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and all the tools of the devil. Sometimes they're very beneficial indeed. We'll see you soon.
See you.
That was just wonderful. That work is inspirational. It gets us to be motivated to do the work we need to do. And as Steve said himself, just don't look at the work, admire the work, be inspired by the work, and do your own work. And that's what we need to do. And whatever that means to you, whatever your voice is, shout it out loud. There's no time to keep it inside anymore. Go to the rooftops, whether it's physically or virtually, and find your voice and speak it out loud and proud. And with that, I say to you, good night, my friends. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Have a wonderful day. We can't wait to see you back here tomorrow night, as we are every weeknight, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time. We will see you again in 23 hours and some odd minutes. We love you all. Be well, be good, and be good to each other. Thank you very, very much for being with us tonight.